French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Angela Merkel presented their rescue plan for the European Union in the corona crisis in a joint press conference. But what does that concept look like? The European Commission will be able to raise 500 billion euros in debt in the coming years to combat the consequences of the corona crisis in Europe. The funds are to be made available in the so-called reconstruction fund, especially to the countries, regions or sectors that are especially affected by the crisis. The bonds issued by the EU are guaranteed by the member states. Because the planned aid is a grant, not a loan, no money is supposed to flow back to the European Commission or the donors. So it really is a question of financial transfers from the wealthier countries to the poorer ones. Are these now these so often mentioned Eurobonds? The answer is no. Eurobonds are joint bonds where all member countries are liable as a whole. That means in case of doubt, and in the worst case, one country would have to pay everything back, providing that all other debtors have defaulted beforehand. The model now proposed works differently. Each country is only liable for its share. This is based on economic output and corresponds to the rate each country contributes to the EU budget. In the case of Germany, that means 27%. But what are the costs for Germany? Germany initially guarantees 135 billion euros, which corresponds to 27% out of these 500 billion euros. But guarantees alone are not enough. The member countries have to service their share of this debt. That also means the pay interest. The 135 million euros will increase the German debt in the medium term. How much that will increase is not yet known. But how much will Germany get back? Well, no one in the federal government does believe that Germany itself will have any major benefits from this program. It's tailored to 8 countries especially affected by the crisis who cannot afford their own rescue program to the extent necessary. And that is definitely not the case in Germany. Germany has adopted measures against the crisis worth more than €1 trillion in the recent weeks. But in this compromise, who prevailed? Macron or Merkel? Well, as I said, both had to make compromises. Merkel initially wanted to prevent the countries from receiving grants. She only wanted to give loans. But she didn't succeed. Macron, in turn, wanted to set up this fund separately from the EU budget, almost as a separate organization. Merkel could prevent that. In this respect, it is a classical compromise, because both sides had to give in. But at the moment, this is only a French-German compromise. So will this concept really be adopted? The plans already have opponents because they go too far for several member states. They are especially found in the Netherlands and in Austria. And because the concept has to be agreed unanimously, further changes will have to be made until everyone can agree. But it is definitely a strong signal when Germany and France set such a signal together. But does that mean that now the EU Commission will, in every occasion that comes up, now set up their own bonds? If this is up to the German federal government, and in unanimous votes it is up to them too, it's a definite no. The corona help should be a one-time exception, and it is really an exceptional time at the moment. No one can argue that. The question is, can our government hold this position in the future? But the success has to start at home. And there's the question, does the Chancellor have the support of her own CDU-CSU, the Christian Democratic Union and the Christian Social Union, the 2 parties that form her own parliament group? Well, violent resistance in the union faction is not to be expected. Deputy Parliamentary Group Leader Andreas Jung and Parliamentary Secretary Eckhard Rehberg welcomed the plans on Tuesday in an exuberant manner. Those two are usually otherwise known for their thrift. The faction leader Ralf Brinkhaus is also standing behind these considerations. The majority of the government should therefore suffice if the plans are brought in front of the Bundestag. Especially when finances come up, this is a chance for our far-right extremists in parliament. So, are the Euroskeptics in the AfD are getting a boost from this again? Unfortunately, this can be assumed. They will complain about the transfers to Brussels, and they will complain that countries that don't have their own budgets in order will benefit from this. And usually in a quite racist way anyway. Opposition to the euro and the EU is just part of the AfD's DNA. Members of parliament of the AfD and their voters will not be really impressed by solidarity shown between the member states in Europe. But what do you expect from nationalists otherwise? This sort can be seen in many countries in Europe at the moment, unfortunately. but let's hope they will never be the majority. I don't think so, especially in Germany. Although many people say Germany wants to leave the EU, the majority of the Germans want out, they hate the EU. That's not true. The majority of Germans is absolutely aware of the benefits we had from the EU in the last 70 years and why the EU is that important for our future. Recently, someone in the comments from definitely the Brexiteer side asked if I'm waving the EU flag. Well, I am European. I do believe that European countries have to work together and that they need a body like the EU. The EU does need a lot of reform, I give you that, but it will still exist in the coming years, although over and over again people tell me at the end of the year there is no EU anymore. I hear this for years, by the way, and it will still be there and it needs reform, but it needs to stay. And if you want to know more about European politics from a German point of view, I put my next video in the end screen. Click and enjoy. I'll see you there. Viel Spaß!